This is what Reaganomics has done. It has basically brainwashed a whole generation or two generations of people to believe that corporations should benefit financially while the rest of us become peons and slaves to the corporations, and that the rich know what's best for you and me, not democracy and government and let's make everybody have equal opportunity and equal rights and equal health care and have a good existence. No, 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 no. Corporations are exploitive. They are corporations for greed, and the greed sits at the top. It does not trickle down. You do not get trickle down economics. And look what happened in the U.S. Trump is in power because of money, buying courts, buying the justice system, buying the politicians. Everybody's afraid of Trump because he has a vengeful reputation. He will use his friends and power to destroy you if you speak out against the orange tard. So you have to be careful. And Canada fell into that trap because Canada allowed a lawsuit to go against his Trump Towers, and it ultimately caused the Trump Tower programs in Vancouver and Toronto to shut down, and Trump didn't get his name on those towers. So no matter what Trump says, he'll look you in the eye and kiss your arse. But he is so revengeful, he will do everything in his power to reprimand those that stood in his way or tarnished his name. And that's where Canada has fallen into. And you see it where he illegally prosecutes Comey, and anybody that stood up to him is being prosecuted, hounded, and that's what Canada can expect. So why are we dealing with the U.S.? We should cut all ties and do not renew the Kuzma agreement. Do not allow Canada to be foreign owned by U.S. corporations, and start taking back what's ours. And there's a lot of countries around the world that will buy up all the goods we were shipping to the U.S., and we got a year to readjust where we ship our goods. So that's my take, folks. I could go on and on about Reaganomics because it was a very, very well orchestrated undermining of democracy for the wealthy, and it all starts there.
Well, one of the keystones of Reaganomics was deregulation, and of course, Trump is deregulating a lot of things, but he is also exposing the American public to all kinds of potential health issues, perhaps a new pandemic. And he's also allowing certain industries, promoting certain industries, such as cryptocurrency, which could have a devastating long-term effect on money markets. But when you own a crypto currency, of course, you have a vested interest in loosening the regulations. Reagan's looser regulations led to the savings and loans scandal, where they had bonds that were based on mortgages that were almost non-existent, and
Yeah,
created a meltdown in the financial markets. That could happen again.
yeah. Well, I mean, Mulroney started to sell off of Canadian Crown corporations and institutions, and he's the one that got rid of these things. Included Air Canada, Petro Canada, Connaught Laboratories, which was a publicly owned pharmaceutical company where we could have made vaccines for the COVID during this crisis. So, I mean, we have to look at, like even Harper sold off the Canadian Wheat Board to foreign corporations. The reason these people wanted these corporations was so that government didn't have control. And if governments don't have control of crown corporations, it forces the voters and citizens to be wage slaves to the wealthy, because you have to pay more in taxes. And the more you have to pay in taxes, the more you have to go out and earn just to put food on your table. And they undermined that knowingly, that they could take the wealth away from a country by selling off crown corporations, which gave higher paying jobs, which they don't want to increase even minimum wage, the corporations, and now the politicians that are owned by the corporations don't want to increase minimum wage to be fair and equitable on the marketplace so you could have a standard of living and afford to live. They want you to be suffering financially so that you'll work for them for nothing. You'll beg for a job. You'll send out 1,000 resumes, and they'll pick and choose who they're going to hire. Not you saying, hey, I got great credentials. I'll be glad to work for you if you pay me a set wage. That doesn't happen. You're a wage slave because your taxes keep going up and up and up. And they know that's the underlying reason that you're going to be stuck in a job or bouncing from job to job, barely making ends meet for the average person. And that is their goal. Is they don't mind a few people reaching a status of economics that is stable, but they don't want the masses to. And that's why the middle class has been eroded since the 1980s. Gradually eroded down to where we really don't have a middle class, but we sure have huge taxes, folks. Our taxes have gone up astronomically since we sell off our corporations, we sell off our non-renewable resources, and we don't get fair value for them. And then we provide corporate welfare because our politicians, the only way you can get elected in any position of politics in Canada or the U.S. is if you've got hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of dollars backing you to get elected. And I say millions because when you get free advertising during prime TV news supper hour, because the foreign television station wants to give it to you, and it doesn't give it equally to your opposition, they have given you millions of dollars of free advertising that your competition can't get. So you are limited on your exposure to politicians. Therefore, the money tells you who you're going to vote for. And they do it manipulatively so that you feel that you might be participating in a democracy. And I think that, folks, leads us back to the issue of why we only have 30 to 40% turnout for voting, is because voters are becoming apathetic because of the money buying the exposure of the press and influencing our elections, so that only money people have a say, and everybody's getting deterred from coming out and voting because they know it's a rigged system. And that the only way to de-rig the system is to make it mandatory voting and to stop the press from having influence over who's going to be elected, because you need to have equal representation and coverage in the press. And many European countries have already done this to make a fairer political system. And all those countries that have done that, guess what, folks? Free education, free health care, and all this stuff because the people want it for the people. It isn't the money people and the wealthy determine what you get for services and how much more you're going to pay in taxes so they can line their pockets in corporate welfare. So, Reaganomics, big failure. Big failure. But to point out that he wanted free tariffs, low tariffs, was so he could have corporations come into other countries because the U.S. was an economic powerhouse at the time. And he knew that the multinational corporations could, if there was no tariffs, do deals in foreign countries to take over their assets like they did in Canada. It was not an equal deal between Canada and the U.S. It gave American companies the right and the power to take over our businesses, our assets, and force our taxes up. And it worked extremely well. And hopefully now we learned our lesson. Have we?
Subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and please share the video. Don't be afraid to share this commercial with your friends too.